Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. I never thought my own family would turn against me. You always imagine that blood means loyalty, that no matter what happens, they'll stand beside you. But I learned the hard way that sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who push the knife in deepest. It all began 2 years ago, when my marriage to Clara started to crumble. We'd been together for almost 10 years. At first, things were good. Simple even. We were just two young people trying to build a life together. I worked long hours at the construction firm I'd started, while she managed a small boutique in town. We didn't have much, but we had each other. At least that's what I thought. Over time, something shifted. Clara became distant. Conversations that used to last for hours turned into short exchanges. She'd spend more time scrolling through her phone, often smiling at messages I wasn't part of. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. I told myself she was stressed, tired, maybe even bored, but never disloyal. Then, one evening, she came home looking furious. "We need to talk," she said sharply, slamming her purse on the counter. My heart sank instantly. Her tone wasn't just angry, it was accusing. "What's wrong?" I asked cautiously. She crossed her arms. "You know what's wrong. You've been cheating on me." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "What? That's not true." "Don't lie to me," she hissed. "I've seen the messages." My mind raced. What messages? I had nothing to hide. My phone was always with me, and I never sent anything inappropriate to anyone. But when she pulled out her phone, there they were, screenshot of a chat I'd never seen before. Someone had created a fake profile using my name and picture, sending flirty messages to another woman. I tried explaining, but she didn't believe me. "You can say whatever you want, but I know what I saw," she said, storming off to our bedroom. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying the scene over and over, trying to figure out who could have done something like that. By morning, she was gone, and so was the warmth that once lived in our home. Over the next few days, she started avoiding me. Her friends began whispering. When I went to her boutique to talk, she called security to escort me out. That's when I realized she'd already turned everyone against me. But the real shock came when my parents called me over for dinner a week later. My mother sounded tense on the phone. "Just come home, son. We need to talk," she said. When I arrived, Clara was already there, sitting at the dining table, looking calm and collected. My parents sat across from her, both wearing expressions of disappointment. My father was the first to speak. "Is it true, Daniel? Did you really cheat on Clara?" I looked at Clara, then at them. "No, it's not true. Someone faked messages. I'd never do that to her." Clara sighed dramatically, as if exhausted by my supposed lies. "He's saying that because he got caught. I didn't want to bring this here, but I thought you should know what kind of man he's become." Then she handed my parents printed screenshots, the same ones I'd already seen. My mother looked at them and shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. "I raised you better than this," she said quietly. "Mom, please," I pleaded. "That's not me. I didn't do this." But it didn't matter. Clara had already won them over. My father's voice was cold when he said, "Maybe you should stay somewhere else for a while, Daniel, until things calm down." Those words broke me. I was being kicked out, not just by my wife, but by my own family, over lies. That night, I packed my things and left. I moved into a small rented apartment on the edge of town. It was quiet, cold, and lonely. For the first time in my life, I felt completely alone, abandoned by the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. I tried calling my parents several times after that, hoping to explain again, but they rarely answered. When they did, my father would say, "You made your bed, now lie in it." Clara had poisoned them against me so effectively that nothing I said mattered. The weeks turned into months. My business started suffering because I couldn't focus. I'd stare at blueprints for hours, unable to think clearly. I missed meals, missed deadlines, and slowly I was losing myself. Then, one morning, I got an envelope in the mail. It was from Clara's lawyer. She was filing for divorce on the grounds of infidelity. The papers made it sound like I was the worst husband imaginable. She wanted the house, half my business, and spousal support. I remember sitting on the couch, staring at those papers for hours. My chest felt heavy, my vision blurred. I thought about calling her, begging her to stop, but I knew it was useless. She'd already decided I was guilty, and no amount of truth could change her mind. I could have signed the papers and walked away quietly. Maybe that's what she expected me to do. But something inside me refused to give up. I knew I was innocent, and I wasn't going to let her destroy my life with lies. So I hired a lawyer, one of the best in the city. He listened carefully as I explained everything, then nodded slowly. "We'll find out who did this," he said firmly. Over the next few weeks, we started digging. My lawyer hired a digital investigator to trace the fake messages. It wasn't easy, but after a month of searching, we finally found a source, an IP address that led back to someone very close to Clara. When I saw the report, I couldn't believe it. The messages had been sent by a stranger or hacker. They were sent by Clara's best friend, Melissa, the same woman who had been whispering in her ear for months, always reminding her how men can't be trusted. It turned out Melissa had feelings for Clara's brother and wanted to break us apart because she believed I had disrespected him in the past. Her twisted revenge plan had worked. Too well. My lawyer gathered all the evidence and presented it to the court. Screenshots, IP logs, timestamps, everything. When Clara's attorney saw the proof, even he was stunned. Clara's face turned pale when she realized what her friend had done. But instead of apologizing, she said, "I didn't know. I thought it was real. I was just trying to protect myself." It was too late. The damage was done. The judge dismissed her claims of infidelity and ordered that the divorce continue on neutral grounds. But for me, it wasn't about winning anymore. It was about everything I had lost: my home, my reputation, my family. Still, part of me hoped that when the truth came out, my parents would finally believe me. I thought they'd call, apologize, maybe even ask me to come home. But they didn't. When I visited them after the hearing, my father opened the door, but didn't let me in. "Daniel," he said stiffly, "we don't want to be part of this drama anymore. You and Clara both need to sort your lives out. Don't drag us into it." I just stood there, speechless. My mother peeked from behind him, her eyes red from crying, but she didn't say a word. She just closed the door. I walked back to my car that day feeling numb. I had cleared my name, but somehow I'd still lost everything. In the month that followed, Clara tried to reach out. She said she wanted to talk things through, that maybe we could start over. But I couldn't do it. I'd given her my heart once, and she crushed it without hesitation. Instead, I focused on rebuilding my life. I poured all my energy into my business, working day and night. Slowly, I began to recover. My company started growing again. I hired new people, took on bigger projects, and regained my confidence. But fate wasn't done with me yet. A year after our divorce was finalized, something happened that turned everything upside down. Not just for Clara, but for my entire family. It started with a phone call from an old friend, one who worked at the same bank where Clara had her accounts. He said, "You should probably sit down for this." I had no idea that what he was about to tell me would change everything. I sat frozen after that call, my mind racing. My friend's voice still echoed in my head. "You should sit down for this." That alone told me it wasn't going to be good. "Clara has been withdrawing huge amounts of money from your old joint account," he said. "But that's not all. She's been moving funds between different names. One of them matches a business your father recently invested in." For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. My father? Why would my father be linked to any of Clara's financial dealings? I thought it must be some kind of mistake. "Can you send me proof?" I asked, gripping the phone tightly. He hesitated. "I could get in trouble, but you deserve to know. Check your email in 10 minutes. When the files arrived, I opened them immediately. There they were: transaction logs, account statements, and signatures. Clara had been quietly funneling money from our old joint savings account into a business, venture registered under my father's name. The timing was suspicious. The transfers began just 2 months before she accused me of cheating. At first, I couldn't make sense of it, but the more I read, the clearer it became. My ex-wife and my father had been working together on a side deal, one that went wrong. When the investment started losing money, they needed someone to blame, and I was the perfect scapegoat. That realization hit me harder than anything else. The people who had thrown me out, humiliated me, and refused to believe me, had used me. It was all starting to connect. My father had always pressured me to put Clara's name on the house. He'd said it was the right thing to do for a wife. Clara, meanwhile, insisted on joint accounts and power over business decisions. I thought they were just looking out for me. I was blind. I took the files straight to my lawyer. He spent hours going through them, then looked up with a grave expression. "Daniel, this isn't just about money," he said. "If this is what it looks like, we're talking about fraud and misuse of business funds. This could open up a criminal investigation." I didn't want revenge. All I'd ever wanted was peace, but this was too big to ignore. They had dragged my name through the mud, destroyed my marriage, and turned my family against me, all to cover their tracks. Within weeks, my lawyer filed a formal complaint. Investigators began tracing the money trail. Every discovery led to something worse. Clara and my father had been using my company's name to secure small business loans without my knowledge. They'd forged my digital signature on multiple documents. When the authorities finally reached out to my father, he called me for the first time in months. His voice was shaking. "Daniel, what have you done? You reported me." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "Me? You used my name to steal money. You framed me for something I didn't do, kicked me out of my own home, and now you're asking what I've done." He fell silent. For the first time, I think he realized I wasn't the naive son he could control anymore. The investigation went public soon after. It became local news. Businesswoman and investor under investigation for financial misconduct. Clara's boutique closed within a week. My father's business reputation collapsed overnight. Partners pulled out, investors withdrew, and he was forced to step down from his company board. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet. I didn't celebrate, didn't gloat. I just watched as the people who had thrown me away finally faced the truth. Then came the day of reckoning. Clara reached out through her lawyer, begging for a meeting. Against my better judgment, I agreed, not because I wanted to see her, but because I needed closure. We met in a small cafe downtown. She looked different, tired, broken. Gone was the confident, accusing woman who once stared me down in court. "Daniel," she began softly, "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Your father said he'd take care of everything. I trusted him." I leaned back, studying her face. "You trusted him more than you trusted me. Your husband. You destroyed my life because you believed I cheated on you. You never even asked for the truth." Tears filled her eyes. "I know. I was stupid. I thought those messages were real. Melissa convinced me. Then your father offered to help me with money problems. I thought he was doing it out of kindness." I shook my head. "He wasn't helping you. He was helping himself. You both used me, and when things went wrong, I became the villain." She reached out to touch my hand, but I pulled away. "Daniel, please," she whispered. "I've lost everything. I don't even have the boutique anymore. Can't we just start over?" Her words stung, but I'd learned my lesson. Some people only come back when their world falls apart. I stood up, placed a few bills on the table, and said quietly, "You didn't lose everything, Clara. You just lost your lies." Then I walked out. As for my parents, the fallout hit them even harder. My father's company collapsed under the weight of the investigation. My mother tried to contact me. She left dozens of voicemails, all filled with tears and regret. I listened to them all, but I couldn't bring myself to call back. One evening, months later, she showed up at my apartment door. I could see she'd aged, her face lined with sorrow. "Daniel," she said softly, "we made a terrible mistake." I stepped aside, letting her in. She sat on the couch, her hands trembling. "Your father's been so ashamed," she said. "He can barely look at himself. We believed Clara because she seemed so sincere. And when you got angry, we thought you were hiding something. I'm so sorry, son. Her voice cracked, and I could see genuine pain in her eyes. I don't hate you, Mom, I said quietly, but it's hard to forget what happened. You believed a stranger over your own son. You watched me lose everything and said nothing. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I know, and we'll live with that for the rest of our lives. In time, I started forgiving her, slowly, cautiously. But with my father, it was different. He never apologized directly. Instead, he sent me a letter months later, saying only, I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope you find peace. Peace, that word used to feel impossible. But life has a strange way of balancing things. With the truth out and my name cleared, my business began to thrive again. New contracts came in and my reputation, once destroyed, was now stronger than ever. People respected me for standing firm against the lies. A year later, I was sitting in my new office when I received another envelope. Inside was the final notice in the court. Clara's assets were frozen due to her involvement in fraudulent activities. My lawyer smiled and said, "Looks like karma has excellent timing." I didn't respond. I just stared out the window, watching the city lights flicker. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was closure. I'd spent years trying to prove my innocence, trying to make people see the truth. But now I understood something deeper. Sometimes you don't need to convince anyone. The truth has its own way of surfacing, no matter how deeply it's buried. Months later, I sold the apartment where I'd lived through all those dark times and bought a house by the lake. It was peaceful there, quiet enough for me to think, to heal, to start over. One morning, as I watched the sunrise reflecting off the water, I realized I was finally free. Free from the lies, the guilt, and the pain. I'd lost my marriage, my family, and almost everything I'd built. But in return, I gained something far more valuable, clarity. I learned who truly cared about me and who didn't. I learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about loyalty, respect, and truth. Sometimes I still get calls from old acquaintances asking, "Is it true what happened with Clara and your dad?" And I always answer the same way. Yes, it's true, but it's over now, and I'm better for it. As for Clara, the last I heard, she moved to another city to start over. I don't wish her harm. In a strange way, I even hope she finds peace too. Everyone deserves a chance to rebuild, even those who once tore you down. But the irony remains. They kicked me out over lies they helped create. And in the end, the truth didn't just set me free, it turned their world upside down.